Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Okay, just ahead of Jeff Paterson. We good, Ryan? You give me a quizzical look there.
Quizzical?
Yeah.
I've never heard that
That's
word.
the biggest word I've ever used in my life.
Quizzical. I've never heard that word.
I think I said refrigerator the other day on the show.
Quizzical.
Yeah. All systems go. Donnie and Dolly presented by, as always, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca, as we bring in from Sakaris and Price, the Rink-wide podcast. In the wake of the Canucks' overtime loss in Columbus last night, Jeff Paterson, how are you, sir?
Donnie, I'm all right. I hope you're okay with the horizontal stripes here. Although I kind of feel like maybe we should all just tape some white down our jeans and solidarity stripes for the Vancouver Canucks these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's somewhere along the line the Canucks can discard those pants in an extra room at Rogers Arena. If you're just tuning in, people have no idea what I'm talking about. We'll explain later. Jeff, 4 straight multi-goal leads blown to start the season. Who gets the blame?
There's enough to go around here. I don't think you single out one person or one group here. I know we've got the poll question, I think, from ownership to management to the coaching staff, and ultimately the players. And look, I think the frustration for me, and I'm trying to speak on behalf of the fans here, we cover this team win or lose, or I guess right now we cover them lose or overtime loss. But regardless, we're going to keep covering this hockey club. But for the fan base, they were promised something different, that this year was supposed to be the year that they take this big step forward, that they learned from their mistakes of a year ago, and that those issues had been addressed. And, of course, they come out and they throw up all over themselves in each of the first 4 games. And the problem is, they haven't really had an off night yet. And over 82 games, you're going to have some nights where you simply don't measure up to your opponents. They have played well in spurts in all 4 of these games to get those multi-goal leads, and then they flush them away. And so I think that, there's I get the panic and the angst and the anger and all of these emotions that have been stirred up 4 games into the season. It's incredible, but people want something to believe in with this group. And so right now, like you've seen it on social media, the last couple of games, they get the multi-goal lead. Nobody thinks that they're going to be able to see it through. Nobody's got confidence in it, in this team. And pretty clearly, the team itself doesn't have a whole lot of confidence once it gets up. Last night, a new wrinkle when they squandered the 2-goal lead, and then they took the lead again in the third period, but couldn't make that stand up. And then they lose in overtime. So I don't like the noise around this team right now. 3 games in, a player's only meeting and the coach calling them mentally weak. And then 4 games in, you're scratching a $5 million veteran. And really one of the few guys that has showed up and competed and played hard and literally fought for this team. Kyle Burroughs takes on Nick Delorier, one of the toughest customers in the league. And he scores a goal in that game too. And then he plays 24 minutes in Washington on Monday and he can't get the lineup. So there's just an awful lot that doesn't make sense right now. And on the Connor Garland front, has Connor Garland blown the barn doors off this team and this league in the first couple of games? No, but he scored. There's a long list of guys that can't say that they've done that. And the underlying numbers are really good. But here's the thing about Connor Garland. He hasn't been on the ice for a goal against. And what's the biggest issue right now is it's play in its own zone. It's play without the puck. They gave up 6 in Washington on Monday night. Connor Garland wasn't on the ice for any one of them. And you pull him out of the lineup. I don't like the messages that are being sent, and I do wonder about the way that they'll be received in that locker room.
One guy, I want to try and be positive because we're going to get tweets and texts, negative media.
Don't worry about that.
I'm just saying. Elias Paterson, his 100th goal last night, 6 points. You can honestly say, Jeff, he has brought it every game. And he is now the second quickest Canuck to score 100 goals. Pavel Bure did it in 154 games, Paterson in 249. But what are you seeing out of Paterson so far this year?
Yeah, a lot to like. He had the 3 points in Washington. He got a great bounce up the end boards, but he was in the right spot. And then he added a couple of assists against the Capitals. And then, in on the first 2 goals last night, loved the pass on the shorthanded 2-on-1 with Bo Horvat.
Yeah.
And I loved his anticipation on his own goal. Podkolzin's shot goes wide. any guy that was on the ice could have got across that goal mouth, but he was the only one that anticipated where that puck was going to be and put himself in a position to slide it home. And so you're right. Like, he's been invested from day one of training camp through the preseason. There was that night in the preseason against Seattle where Kuzmenko scored a couple of goals and the city sort of fell in love with Kuzmenko. But without a doubt, Paterson was the best player on the ice in that preseason game. And so I think we saw flashes in exhibition action out in Abbotsford the night that he went head-to-head with Connor McDavid, and then has carried that on. So you're right. If you're looking for a positive there, I think Elias Paterson has done his part, and that's a great sign for him and the hockey club. You know, Bo Horvat with 2 goals last night, 1 in Washington, so he's already doing Bo Horvat things. Horvat has scored 23 goals in his last 41 NHL games. It's like in a contract year, I know his agent was on with you guys and talking about being a number one center. He's on a 46-goal pace over his last 41 games. So Bo Horvat performed, I think, reasonably well. When I look at this team, though, JT Miller has underperformed. Let's be honest, in the first 4 games, both ends of the ice. Quinn Hughes just doesn't quite look right, guys. They are leaning on him. He's playing so much. He's second only to Drew Doughty in average ice time through the first week of the season. You know, he was out there for 2.5 minutes of the 3 minutes of overtime last night, and the overtime winner, 1 minute and 26 second shift. Like, and I get it. He is their guy, and you want him on the ice, but at the same time, he just doesn't look right ever since getting his face raked by Evander Kane on opening night in Edmonton. And the other guy, and I know he didn't play last night, but Thatcher Demko certainly hasn't looked like the team MVP in any of his 3 starts so far. And so if you're getting subpar performances or even average performances from JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, and Thatcher Demko, it's going to be really difficult for this team to find success. And yet they have put themselves in position to have success in all 4 of these games. It really is mind-boggling that they haven't been able to see one of them across the finish line.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the way Spencer Martin played yesterday.
Nope.
Tyler Myers returns just over 22 minutes. Your report card on what he was doing on the ice.
Yeah, the Canucks didn't have to do a lot of penalty killing, but he just brings that length and veteran savvy, and I do think that he'll shore that up and getting Ilya Mikheyev into the lineup as well. I like the fact that Bruce Boudreau went away from Miller and Lazar to start the penalty kill. He went with Horvat and Paterson, and they end up scoring a shorthanded goal. Not their first time out on that penalty, but it's kind of like a batting order, right? You put your guys at the top of the batting order, they're going to get more at-bats, and so Horvat and Paterson got a second turn on that first shorthanded situation, ended up scoring. But you asked me about Tyler Myers. I do think, and I know he's not everybody's favorite in this market, and when the mistakes happen, they are loud because he's so big, but I do think that he's got a veteran presence. I believe that there is respect in that locker room, and I was a little worried for him. He, flies commercially to get to Columbus to be able to play in this game, and then he blocked that shot with his wrist, and I thought, oh man, like all that hustle to get into the lineup, and I was worried for him, but he was able to stay in the hockey game. They need some stabilizing forces, quite simply, and you just want to believe that at some point here, they'll continue to do the good things that put them in front of these games, and then they'll be able to figure out the defensive side of the thing. But Donnie, the problem is, this is it. Save for Travis Dermott, this is the Vancouver Canucks. What you see is what you get, and what you've got so far, I don't think anybody can be happy with. And so, early on, those first couple of games, it was, Mikheyev's still out and Myers is out. Those guys are back now, and they still couldn't get it right last night. And so there's no heroes waiting to ride in on a white horse. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And Travis Dermott, when he's ready, yeah, he'll play, but then they're going to have decisions to make, not just about the 6 defensemen, but the roster. What happens to a guy like Kyle Burroughs, who's given it everything, and that's not enough right now. And then, of course, Jack Rathbone still waiting his turn patiently, and you wonder where that storyline is going to go. So, again, there's just so much noise around this hockey club. And you know what quiets the noise? Winning. But they go into Minnesota, then they come home. The home opener is against Buffalo, and for the last decade, the Sabres have basically been the free spot on the bingo card. Well, they're 2-1. They won in Edmonton last night, and I think they think that finally, after a dark decade, maybe they're going to get some traction. And then you look beyond that, and the Canucks can't afford to look beyond Minnesota, but we can. If you just step back and look at the schedule, Carolina's in here early next week, Pittsburgh at the end of next week. There's some daunting opponents coming up on the schedule. And right now, I would say all 31 teams in the National Hockey League are going to pose problems for the Vancouver Canucks if they continue to play the way that they have played, at least in spurts, particularly in third periods here in the early going.
Thanks for reminding fans about that tough schedule coming up, Jeff. Just a ray of sunshine. Appreciate it. But you're a ray of sunshine for us all the time.
Bring the heat.
We appreciate it. Jeff, thanks so much for this.
Yeah, well, we'll see you guys in a week, and apparently we'll see the sunshine in about 6 months, because I think this extended run is officially over. Let's hope that the Canucks' run of losing comes to an end here pretty soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Jeff Paterson from Sekeres and Price and the Rink Wide podcast.